In the post-Second World War scenario, mostly Western countries dominated the power structure of the world. They created international, regional, and purposive groupings to advance their agenda. With organizations like the International Monetary Fund or IMF, they advanced their economic monopoly. They made the dollar an international currency and maintained their dominance. As money is the fuel of any state, it was easy to influence the political structure of the world's countries. By weaponizing dollar, they dictated the terms to the poorer countries. However, this currency monopoly of the West has now started to break. Namaste and welcome to TFI Post. I'm your host Piyush. If you are watching us on YouTube, please hit the share button and press the bell icon to get all the latest updates. If you're watching us on Facebook, do like, share and subscribe to the page. Let's begin with the video report. The rise of Bharat overhaul in world politics and regrouping of countries thereof have ignited a process to challenge this dominance of the West. Every organization or symbol created by the West to establish their monopoly is being targeted. New structures and parameters are being drawn to determine the new world order. Countries are breaking the old system of the West and moving into new world order. In this new system, Bharat is taking the lead to bring reform to world governance. India's Commerce and Industry Minister Piyush Goyal was on an official visit to Saudi Arabia from 18th to 19th September 2022. The visit was made to oversee the progress of India's Saudi Strategic Partnership Council. Reports suggest that in the meetings related to the economy and investment, the discussion was also held on the feasibility of institutionalizing rupee-rial trade. Other than discussion on rupee-rial trade, the two countries also talked on a wide range of topics such as institutional tie-ups of the export and import banks of the two countries, joint projects in other countries, mutual recognition of standards, and establishment of startup and innovation bridge. They talked about strengthening collaboration in infrastructure development, railways, industries, manufacturing, pharmaceuticals, automobiles, petrochemicals, specialty chemicals, technical textiles, mining, and increasing project exports from India. The institutionalization of rupee-rial trade is a very big move by the two countries. Considering the value of trade the two countries carry, it has the power to displace the dominance of the dollar in the world. The trade value of the two countries was $42.8 billion in the financial year of 2021-22. After the US, China and UAE, Saudi Arabia is the fourth largest trade partner of India. As most of the trade is driven in the energy sector, it will also provide a soothing effect to dollar buoyancy in the economy. India's energy bill was reportedly $119 billion in the financial year 2022. If the two countries agreed to trade in respective countries' currencies, then the large number of dollars that are burned in importing this crude oil would be stabilized. Saudi Arabia is not the only country with which India is trading in domestic currencies. Recently, the State Bank of India or SBI asked exporters of the country to avoid trade in dollars and other major currencies with Bangladesh. According to reports, the SBI has said to its branches that the country is facing a shortage of foreign currency due to large import bills and weakness of Bangladeshi taka against dollar in recent times. However, the top bank has given a green signal to trade in Indian rupees and taka. Following Russia's special operations in Ukraine, a mammoth of sanctions was imposed on Russian traders and their businesses. Russia is one of the largest producers of energy resources like coal, crude, and gas. Sanctions of the West provided energy deficit countries like China and India an opportunity to import energy resources at a discounted rate from Russia. Barred from trading in US dollars, Russian companies were searching for alternate currencies for the transactions to bypass sanctions and continue their exports. That is why rupee-ruble trade was allowed between India and Russia. Further, Iran has also shown its interest in supplying crude oil to India under rupee-rial mechanism. Following the American sanctions of Iran, India had to reduce its energy imports from the Islamic country. Speaking about the internationalization of rupee, PM Modi, in a program of the Ministry of Finance and Corporate Affairs, had said it is necessary to focus on how to make our domestic banks currency an important part of international supply chain and trade. We have shown in the last 8 years that if India collectively decides to do something, then India becomes a new hope for the world. Today, the world is looking at us not as a big consumer market, but looking at us with hope and confidence as a capable, game-changing, creative, innovative ecosystem. Following the government's instructions, RBI established a mechanism for doing international trade in rupee instead of dollar. According to the new arrangement, exports and imports will be denominated and invoiced in Indian rupee. For this purpose, authorized Indian banks will have to open a rupee escrow account of the foreign bank. In other words, Indian banks will open a rupee-dominated account with the foreign banks like HSBC, Russia's Sberbank and VTB. These banks too will facilitate in trade in rupee. Apprising about the new arrangement, RBI said, in order to promote growth of global trade with emphasis on exports from India and to support the increasing interest of global trading community in Indian rupee, it has been decided to put in place an additional arrangement for invoicing, payment and settlement of exports, imports in rupee. Since World War II, the use of dollars in international trade has helped the United States to establish its hegemony in the world. The resilient currency provided the country with a stable economy and built a conducive environment for investments. Further, dominating positions in the International Monetary Fund and other multilateral organizations helped them tweak the financial and economic policies of the world. In a way, the road to superpower goes through the huge market expansion of the country, and so the American hegemony was established. It is pertinent to understand that India had started to look for modalities of internationalization of rupee in early 2010s. In 2010, RBI commissioned a study called Internationalization of Currency, the Case of the Indian Rupee and Chinese Renminbi by Rajiv Ranjan and Anand Prakash. In the subsequent year, Shaimala Gopinath conducted another study called An Internationalized Rupee. Both these studies advised cautious approach while adopting rupee in international trade. They suggested that India should first start to enhance acceptability of INR in the local region, as was the norm before 1960s. Only then should other countries be explored. In the past, rupee has been used for transactions for trade in countries like Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, Hong Kong, Sri Lanka, Qatar, UAE, Kuwait, Oman, and even the UK. There was a currency called Gulf rupee. By the beginning of the 70s, the domination of rupee declined due to ultra-socialist policies. But the economic rise of India has once again provided an opportunity to bring the golden age back to Asia. With about 18% of the world population and a GDP value of $3.5 trillion, India is now a superpower in the world, a leading contributor to world peace, functional democracy, and responsible nuclear power. Bharat's credentials are now highly valued. Nation's stable economy, multicultural peaceful society, democratic political structure, and centuries-old civilization make it a respected and formidable power. Bharat's one step means 1.4 billion steps in the direction of de-dollarization of the world's economy. As the Modi government is advancing in this direction, one more term of PM Modi in power would finally bring the end of dollar dominance in the world.